I'm Alison Cairns, and welcome back to my channel, where we explore powerful tools to transform your energy, mindset, and life. Alongside my Energy Bites podcast series, I also host Energy Talks, where I sit down with inspiring people who work with energy in all its forms. The aim is to introduce, inform, and inspire you to explore the many paths of conscious living so you can find what resonates and make it your own. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to someone who blends science with spirit in the most grounded and practical way, Anita Ho from Wutan Surrey. Anita started her career as a systems engineer, someone trained to think in logic, structure, and systems. But in 2012, she began her journey into the world of Qigong, and what started as curiosity quickly became her calling. Now, with nearly 2 decades of experience, Anita is a highly respected teacher of Qigong, Tai Chi, Bagua, and Xing Yi. Her approach beautifully bridges East and West, combining ancient wisdom with a clear, methodical understanding of how energy actually works. And I can say this with confidence because I've recently started taking her classes myself. The skill, discipline, and dedication she brings to her teaching is something you feel instantly. Today, Anita will share how her scientific mindset has helped her to unlock the true depth and healing power of these practices and why they matter more than ever in today's chaotic world. And keep watching because she'll also demonstrate some of the moves so you can try it for yourself and reap the benefits. So without further ado, let's welcome Anita Ho.
Hello everyone, I'm Anita Ho. My Chinese name is Qi Wai, which can mean, and it sounds like wisdom.
Ooh, that's quite appropriate, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm very pleased to have you here today. And today I'd like to specifically talk about Qigong and Tai Chi. But before we get into any of the practices, what I'd really like to start with is to understand your own personal journey and how you made that transition from being a systems engineer to being a senior instructor at Wutan.
My journey in the world of martial art, it is an art. You know, you do create your own feelings about the thing, but you do learn the basic skills. It's just like when you learn painting, you need to know how to, use colors or brush. So I do learn the skill from the work, but I still do feel that it is part of me that I'm bringing to my lessons. But my journey, when did I start to learn this art? 20 odd years ago at Chinese school. We were all, a group of parents all sitting around doing nothing, and the school decided to bring along Wutan, the martial arts school, to teach us the Tai Chi and the Kung Fu with Master and his wife. Master Tai is our master, and his wife, Master Bai, who's a fellow student at Peking University, I think, at the same time as Jet Li. She trained
The
with
current
him.
Hollywood star, Jet Li,
Yeah,
yes.
but sadly she didn't go the Hollywood way. But then, if she did, then she wouldn't be our teacher.
Right, exactly.
So my first teacher at Wutan was her.
Okay.
Bai
And
Li.
at this time, you were still a systems engineer.
I was working full-time, single mum with 2 kids.
Okay.
And Chinese school was on a Saturday.
Right.
Weekends. And it was full on for us. I volunteered there, so I did lots of the other sort of work there. And my children were learning Chinese, reading and writing. I enrolled myself into the Tai Chi classes, and they, after the language classes, they did the Kung Fu class. So all three of us.
Had you ever done anything like that? Or was it
Nothing.
your first experience?
Absolutely first experience. My sort of hobby
Okay.
or exercise was racket sports. It was tennis, badminton and squash and a bit of table tennis.
So totally different to...
It was the whatever was around. So this Chinese thing was, wow, revelation.
Yeah.
Because I became an English child when I was about 8. My stepfather, a soldier, stationed in Hong Kong, married my mum when I was 8.
Right.
So I went to school with other English forces school children from the age of 8. Mm-hmm. But what is interesting is that at the age of 40 odd, the first time I actually delve into my own culture.
Right.
This Chinese, traditional Chinese martial art.
Okay. And how did you find it? Because it's quite different, like you said, from racket sports and more fast-paced things.
in some ways it looked familiar because as
Right.
a young child in Hong Kong, you went to see all those kung fu movies when they all that stuff. So some of the moves
Right.
look very familiar, but the actual doing of it was completely alien to me.
Okay.
That sort of
Was this Tai Chi or Qigong? Because I have to admit, I've started classes with you recently, and I have to say I love them. I used to be a martial artist, specializing in Shotokan karate, so it was very different
Yes.
from Tai Chi. And to be honest, and probably with some of the viewers out there watching this video now, there's a little bit of a blur for me in terms of what's the difference, because I know it's slow movement, I know it's about breathing, but the two before I started your class seemed to be the same.
Yeah.
So
the two words Qigong. Qi is the Chinese word for breath. Gong is to do work. In the same way as Kung Fu, the two words is to do work.
right.
It doesn't mean martial art at all. I can say I'm going to go in the kitchen and do some work.
Yes,
I'm going to do
yes,
some Kung
yes.
Fu. Qigong actually literally means breath work.
Okay.
Is to use your breath to do the work that you need to do.
So it's more of each individual movement and motion. Yeah.
Including the standing still.
Right.
That is still using the breath to do the work for you, which in this case is to teach you to learn to breathe well, deep breathing, and focus your mind on very little. That is the work that you're doing.
And for people who haven't tried this, I have to say, one of the first classes that I took with Anita, it was about standing still. And at first thought, you'd think, okay, so you're standing still. Now what? But I have to say, even just after a minute or a couple of minutes, it was hard work, because it's not just about standing still without being mindful about what you're doing. And that's what Anita does. She teaches you about why you're doing something, how to align your body. And to be honest, if you're standing properly, it is work. It is work. And you do feel it in your muscles. And I could actually feel heat
Absolutely.
from myself, because it was hard work. Muscles were being worked because I was being so mindful and conscious about how I was standing and how I was breathing. So it's not as easy as it looks.
And like all things that look simple, to make it look simple, you have to put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
A lot of work before it is simple. Once you get it and once you've practiced it, it will be simple, and then you can take on something else. Yeah. So what we use the Qigong for in class is like any other exercise class. You must do warm up. Yeah. You must, flex the ankles, flex the body, get breathing going. And until you've done some warm-up, you shouldn't just launch yourself into, because you might hurt yourself. So if you think about it, is this the warm-up of our class? But also, if you also think about it, until your body and your mind is ready to take on information, you won't take any information in.
Right.
So if I want to teach you some Tai Chi moves and you're not ready to be taught, then you might as well not bother. Yeah, and Qigong is such a basic thing to teach you about how to be, how to use your breath, which you have to take.
And this is, again, important in modern day society, because people, even though breathing is natural, we're not breathing properly.
No.
We're doing shallow breaths.
Yeah.
We're not taking in the full amount of oxygen or qi that our body needs. And it's rush, rush, rush. We don't have time to think about things.
And that's why there are health professionals for all sorts of conditions, including Parkinson's, anxiety, depression. They send those patients that they don't have resource to help them, because
Right.
Western medicine have very little tools to cure the people of all those diseases besides drugs or an operation.
Right.
Yes, there is some talking therapy, but very limited, cognitive behavior therapy. They're very narrow. Quite a lot of those professionals send people, their patients that they can't help, to things like Tai Chi yoga, Pilates,
Which
they're
is
all
why
mindful way of getting in touch with yourself and use what you've got to help yourself, because what you have got is what created your problem. And the only thing or only person that can really, really help you is you.
Exactly. You need to take ownership and find ways to do things differently. Because obviously, all of this fast-paced, mind-driven world that we live in, it's created a lot more complexity.
Is it mind-driven? We are allowing other people to drive us. We are not taking ownership of it ourselves. We are not using what we've got. We allow other people to use us. And that's one of the things I have learned in the years of learning Tai Chi. I have stopped myself from reacting to how other people think about me and causes me to do what they want me to do.
And it's the whole thing about taking the control back, because those external things, other people, other situations, other circumstances, we can't control. But what we can control is ourselves.
And the sad thing is, we almost let other people do it to us.
Absolutely.
That's the way,
And we don't realize it, because most people, including myself at one point, we're the victims, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to blame something or someone than to take ownership. But actually, once you do take ownership, it's simple things that we can do to really improve.
And as an engineer, I have used my curiosity, my logical mind, my desire. An engineer is taking theory to put into practice. Forces mass acceleration, and I teach you that in class.
Yes.
Yeah. I might not be very big, but if I move fast enough, my force will be as big as yours if you don't move as fast as me. Okay. So I do use my engineering skill to teach what I teach, because then that makes sense to people. And also, as an engineer, it's practical.
Absolutely.
It is not some, some people think I'm doing some voodoo magic. No, I'm sorry, I'm not a musician, but I think I am. I hope I'm a good teacher. I explain things to you. I help you to do what you feel is the right thing, what I know is the right thing to do in your way.
Moving along in terms of Qigong, okay? Yeah. So how does Tai Chi come from Qigong then?
Qigong is thousands of years old. I'm told that there are cave drawings with some of these stances of, stick drawings of people doing Qigong. Some people think it's about 4,000 years old. So it's a thing that human beings have been doing for their own health. Tai Chi and this fighting thing, this martial art thing, is not that old. It's a few hundred years old. It came from requirements of people like soldiers. They needed to train.
So it adapted to what was needed.
But like all exercise, they need to get the body in a good place, get their mind in the good place before they become effective soldiers. So some of these, like the sit on the horse and shoot the tiger, some general or some training person must have thought, well, how do we sit on a horse and make sure we don't fall off? How do we ensure that they do shoot straight and all of that? And how do they make their muscles strong? So a lot of the martial art side came from the need to do martial art. But to do good martial art, you need a good mind and body, and that's where you get the Qigong side, and we use it as warm-up. But in terms of mental preparation to do this learning and to do all these movements well, is to learn all that and to carry that thought through into the martial art.
So if I understand correctly, alongside that, Tai Chi also has forms. So you have short forms and long forms. Is that also adapted to people in a more modern capacity so that they have a more, I don't want to say flowing, but a more sequential way of movement?
Like all learning, you have to have some sort of syllabus.
Yeah.
You have to give people steps to get there. A bit like a recipe. You have to have so many of this and so many of that, and you're going to put things in order. And I think that's what we do. We teach you get your body in the right place, get your mind in the right place. Then we can teach you complicated sequence of, like a dance move. You have to have sequences. You do this move, you do that move. And that is also why something like Tai Chi is not only good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health, as in it gets you in a better place, but also it makes your brain work, calculating things, remembering things.
And as I said, your brain does work even from just standing still. Again, because most of us don't think about it. So you're standing, maybe your shoulders are slouched, maybe they're tense, maybe your hips aren't aligned, whatever the case may be. But once Anita puts you in the right place, you're standing there and you're being very mindful of every movement that you're making, or every unevenness that your shoulders hold, which does put a lot of work onto your body, but it also helps to align and balance.
Yeah, and that sense of balance is one of the things that we try to give you, because when you feel balance, English, I found, compared to Chinese, for example, a much more useful language to teach this martial art in some ways, because a lot of the words give you that mental thought. When you say you are balanced, it gives you that thought that you not only physically balanced,
Yes.
if that person's a balance, that means that you are not skew in any way,
right,
in terms of character, or
you mean it has a broader meaning than just
it is. It gives you the whole essence of the person when you say somebody's balanced. The other word I quite often use is the word grounded, be in touch with the earth. Again, as a thought, when you're flighty, as in you are not very stable, as in you're not grounded.
Yeah.
So I do find the English language fantastic to help me teach this, to make your feet grip the floor so that you feel that you're not floating and you're not being, and you feel good. And then you add to it, I'm feeling grounded, I'm feeling balanced. That helps you to have a better mental health. That is why it's a mental training as well as a physical training. Because in fact, I cannot see as an engineer, you can actually separate. They are not two different things tightly bound together. They are just the one thing, and you pay attention to each of the different bits of the one thing. It isn't two pieces stuck together. It is just one whole thing. That's me as an engineer telling you, especially as a systems engineer.
Yeah.
A system is made up, in my world, is hardware, software, the power, the current. It's a system. And each bit's got to be right before the system can work well.
I'm desperate to get into a demo, but before we go into that, because I'm sure everybody's excited to learn, well, what do you actually have to do? Why is it such hard work? Can you first talk about, because I've heard of yin and yang, okay? And I'm no expert at this, so I'm not going to claim to know a lot, but yin is it more passive? It's more of the feminine side or the receiving side, whereas yang is more giving. And there's different types of Tai Chi, isn't there?
Yeah. Tai Chi is classified as an internal art.
Yeah.
All the other martial arts, for example, we call those hard martial arts. In my school, we have the soft side, the internal art, because it's all about you. Even though we can use it.
You combine it, don't you? Yeah.
We actually use the internal to affect the external. It's called internal art, because you've got to understand you before you can use you to do whatever it is you need to do, and you need to do that well. So that is the soft, okay? But until you are soft, you can't do the hard.
Right.
Until you are soft, and when you are letting things go, you are bigger and stronger than when you weren't. Is that contradictory of terms? No, that is, we as human beings, we as anything, you cannot exist without both. You can't say, I'm more this, I'm more that. You are at your best when you have equal proportions. But like all of life things, sometimes you're more of this, sometimes you're more of that. And there is all sorts of things you can do to help yourself to get back to the centre. The first thing you do, I hope I teach you, is feel. Listen. Be still and just let it happen.
Again, this is probably a common misconception or a stereotype. So Tai Chi, Qigong, because it is internal, because it is kind of looking inside and a softer side of things, I automatically put yin to that word, okay,
yes.
to that practice.
Yeah.
But it's not so, is it?
Until you relax, you are a smaller thing. You are smaller. When you relax, you're bigger.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it.
So if you want to be as big as you can, relax.
Which at first, when you hear that, it sounds contradictory.
But it isn't. I'm an engineer. You are physically bigger when you let everything go.
And it's just like you mentioned as well, when you combine it with martial arts, if you're trying to strike somebody, if you're really rigid and if you're really stiff, you're going to hurt yourself, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that happen. The other thing that happens is you don't apply the force because you're holding some of it back. Your arm is shorter if you tense, because you're pulling your joints tighter.
Yeah.
But if you let it go, there's a bigger gap in each of your joints, so your arm is longer. You reach further.
Do you find that your background as a systems engineer helps you with this?
Exactly.
Because you're always analyzing, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm constantly applying what I know to be facts, physics, chemistry. You know, we're a chemical factory. That's the other thing that I have worked very hard to help me to understand what I do, is I do go on the internet and I do read up and explain to me, well, why does it feel good when you breathe in through your nose? It does, doesn't it? But why? Well, it's a chemical thing that's happening in your brain. And that's why some medicines do help with some conditions in the short term.
And I think this is another reason why I set you apart from other classes that I've taken, because you take the time to explain why we are doing everything. And I think this is so important in anything that you do, because if you just follow the instructions, which is, you know, a skill in itself, it's great because you learn how to do it and you can even look really good doing all of the movements and being fluid. But with that further understanding, then you're really applying your body, your breath, your mind to the practice, which can really enhance all of the benefits.
And I would question, do you really do it well when you don't understand?
Exactly.
You might look right, but do you really punch as hard as you think you could?
So going back to the yin and yang then, this isn't a yin style of anything, because actually what you're teaching me in my class,
the balance of everything is, yes, for you to be strong, you actually have to be relax, let it go thing. Don't hold it back.
So it's not the traditional, just because I strike hard, that doesn't mean I'm going to be more effective.
No.
But because you see it with your eyes,
Yeah.
then visually you're like, okay, that person's stronger. But obviously there's the unseen chi that we have in our bodies.
There's lots of things in life you can't see. You can't see electricity.
Yeah,
but we know.
exactly.
And I do understand that some people refuses to take on board this thing called chi. And the way I teach it, you don't have to accept that fact. But and I'm sure you can understand that I explain to you factual things. Yeah. Including nitric oxide. You produce nitric oxide in your nose when you breathe in through your nose. That's why it feels good. Right. It makes you relax. Because there's not a lot of it, so you've got to keep doing it. So yes, I give you all the facts and all the explanation behind what I ask you to do and what we are doing from a factual point of view and not some voodoo magic. Okay. But if you are willing to think about it that way and it seems to help you to do it better, please take along. Yes, absolutely fine. Absolutely. And some people said, I'm feeling tinglies in my fingers. Is that the chi? Factually, it's tingling because you're paying attention to it, blood flow will get there. And also because now you are concentrating on it. If it was tingling before, but you don't listen to it, It can tingle all it's like and you're not listening to it. So you can look from it from a point of view of facts.
Right, yeah.
But you can also think, God, this chi is working. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So I very rarely tell you that you're wrong, but I would help you to think differently about it. So
Which
it's more,
is another reason why I like your style, because it's not about rigidity.
No,
it's
not
about,
rigid.
and sometimes I ask you, which is right? Do you do this or do you do that? And you say, it depends. It depends on what your purpose is. It depends on what you're trying to achieve.
I would like to say that is the human way.
Yeah, yeah.
We are all very different. But you, in fact, have the same things as me. You have eyes, nose, senses, feeling, and you have kids, you have family. You're the same as me, but you're different to me at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You have both at the same time.
So everything needs to be adapted and...
Because you are different to me in some ways, so how you feel about something is different to me. So I can't say to you, you must feel the same thing as me. But what I can help you to say, well, are you feeling your toes today?
Yeah.
Are you wiggling them about today? I noticed your right shoulder is a bit high today. Have you thought about your balance today? Why is your right shoulder a bit high? I can help you with that as a teacher, to listen to yourself.
Well,
Just
let's
to give
get
you-
into it. Let's
Yeah.
get into it.
Just a little thing about why did I become a teacher.
Yes, yes.
That was about 10 years ago. Life is very interesting. The company was cutting numbers, yeah, and they asked people to volunteer. Instead of saying, you're going to go, they asked people to volunteer. And that time, my kids were teenagers, and I'd been a single mum and not having that looking after the kids, which I so wanted to do, to be the mummy at home and to be able to be more involved in their lives rather than just cook the dinner and earn the money thing. So after about 6 months of, can I afford to, and I even asking my teachers, could I earn some money from teaching? He said, yeah, of course you can. Yeah, it took me about 6 months to take redundancy.
Okay.
And I did, yeah. I didn't actually work. I didn't do anything except for be at the home mum and take them to school and go to the after school clubs and all that.
Do you see this as a coincidence, or do you think it happened
it's life.
because this was...
Life was meant to be.
Yeah.
I would not be the teacher I am today without having done engineering.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have had to brought that skill to say, well, this works because...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, forces mass times acceleration. So if you haven't got big mass, then you move faster. But if you're big, you can't move fast because you're too heavy, so you have to rely on your mass, all of those things. So, no, I can't say, well, I should have been a teacher 40 years ago because I wouldn't be the teacher I am today. So it is all part of life, wonderful tapestry of coincidences, things, fate. I don't care what you call it. Is that journey that we all have to go on. And it is your choice which road you go down,
Yes.
or whether you go down this one or that one, or be distracted by these little roads.
And the difference is with people is whether you decide to go with the flow of where life takes you, or some people resist. Like if that came to the redundancy option, some people would resist. No, I want to stay here. But life is trying to bring you forward.
It's very good because I would have carried on earning the money. It was good money, engineer, got paid well. And so there would be no money worries.
Right,
But I felt at that time, I needed to do that mummy thing. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity to do that. And again, engineering gave me that. So, and then, teaching, it's fantastic. I don't earn a lot of money, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
I'm drawing my state pension now, so I've got that money coming in without me doing anything. So that's good. Anyway, that's how I started teaching. And it wasn't because I wanted to be a teacher. It was because, life
just took you there.
And being a mum at home all day is not enough for me.
Your kids grow up. So
they grow up. And that's the other thing, what Tai Chi has done for me, or this martial art thing. It gave me so much. It made me a different person to what I was 20 odd years ago. I'm fitter physically. Yeah. But fitter in here, and cope with people thinking of how they think about me or how I react to them, or, being treated the way I am. Being a woman, when I started engineering, 4% of engineers were women. Today it's about 12%, I believe. maybe going up to 50, because a lot of engineering now is at a desk. And it's your mind, especially software engineering, the IT stuff. So there are more and more women are able to go into that without prejudice. Yeah, so 4% of women in the engineering. So quite often in my work, I was the only woman in the room. Different colour face. And I'm physically so small. I'm only 4'10". But has it stopped me? I don't believe so. I believe I've actually used it. People remember
And
me.
I want to stress that because it's how you look at things. And I know this is a very complicated topic we're not going to go into depth about, but it is that mindset, like you said, you're different, but not just your face, but your size or your personality or your cultural differences as well. But you can use that to your advantage. You don't have to look at it as...
You choose to use it because it's one of your resources.
Yeah.
God gave us that, or our Creator. You were born with it. So you don't have to use it in the way that other people think you should use and be the victim or whatever I've done it. People remember me.
Well, without further ado, let us get into something practical that we can show the viewers, and maybe they can follow along as well, because this will give you a real taste or a little tiny introduction of what it is, because there are so many things out there that me, for example, that I never tried because I didn't understand it enough. But if something like this appeals to you, why don't you try it right now in your own home and see what you think of it, rather than us just talking about it.
Well, one of the first things I love to teach everybody is to sit better.
Okay.
There was a headline in some newspaper recently, I was told by somebody, it was something like, sitting is as bad as smoking, because the effect of sitting could affect your physical health and your mental health as much as smoking. It causes you to slouch, and also that mental thought of inactivity. So there is, funny enough, even the posture of sitting gives you a mental thought. I love to give a little bit of a tip of how to sit well, so that it helps you to do whatever it is you do, like sitting for a long time. Or, like Darren in class, he was a long-distance lorry driver, so he was in this static position like this all day. Anyway, so when you're sitting, learn to imagine that you're not sitting on a chair, that you're sitting on a stool and there's nothing behind you. So make sure both of your feet is on the floor. And if you can, either have your knee level with your hip or your knee is below your hip. Okay? And then press on your legs to make your back straighter and not sort of C-shape your back. Yeah. Okay. So
this would be good for people at a desk.
At a desk, or whatever job that whatever it is during sitting. If you're in the car in a long drive,
So using your legs while you're seated will help your posture.
Yeah, and if you've got to use the pedals, you can still use your legs to push your back up, and you can still use your legs. So think about using your core and your legs to keep your back straight. But if you can, have both feet on the floor. Okay. And then, can you see I'm sitting up much taller?
Yeah.
And
then what about standing up from this position?
And standing up from this position, adjust your feet, and make sure you can press on it, and then you should be able to get up without doing this sort of thing. A lot of people do this sort of thing. And they haven't used their legs at all. They've used their arm, they've used their back.
Right, yes, exactly.
Why not use the bigger sets of muscles in your body? Your glutes are the biggest individual muscles in your body. Your quads are the biggest sets, and you have 2 of them. But when a lot of people get up, do not use any of those, but they use their arm muscles. They try and use their back muscles, which are very thin and very weak.
That's why sometimes when people are standing, you can hear them groan
Oh,
and hold their backs.
Yeah, because they're trying to use their back muscles to pull them up. Okay. Yeah, so why not?
Simple.
Yeah,
but
it's hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to think about it. And then it will become a habit. A habit is only something that you do without thinking. There is no such thing as good habits or bad habits. Habit is just something that you do habitually. You know, English is a very good word, a language to it. You do things out of habit because you do it habitually. You keep doing the same thing. It isn't right or wrong or good or bad. So my habit to get up now is always this.
Yeah. So that, again, is a very practical way of just using some of the basic principles
of how a body works.
Of how our body works.
And how not to hurt yourself.
Okay. Let's move on to maybe doing a few... Breathing. And then we can do a few movements.
Yeah, okay.
As well.
This is all easy stuff. Breathing, standing or sitting. Learn to breathe in through your nose. And really learn to breathe through your nose. Simple thing to think about is imagine that you're smelling something. When you smell something, try and close your mouth. And not, you can't. Open your mouth and try and smell, you can't. Yeah, so close your mouth and really think about, quite often it's a food for some people. So really think about that food and almost think about the taste of the back of your throat, because then you bring your tongue into play. And if you can, touch the tongue to the roof of your mouth, because it opens your throat. Yeah, do it with or without the tongue, and you'll find that it's a different amount that you can take in. So think of a nice smell. Oh, the chocolate. I always make a joke of this one, is the food experience without the calories. Okay, so think of chocolate, think of the, crispy donuts, that sort of slightly oily smell. So really think of a smell. And it's so nice that you sigh. And just doing a few of those make you feel better.
And both of these techniques that you've just talked about are things that we do every day. So it's not even doing something else or taking time out. You need to breathe. You need to sit. So it's just being more mindful of how you're doing it.
And changing your habit to be a good habit. I'm not asking you to deep breathe all day, every day, because then that is just impossible to do. But what is useful to do is maybe first thing in the morning when you get up, or when you take a break from work or something, you know, before you go to the toilet or before you get up and go and get a cup of coffee, just be still and just take a few breaths and then go off and do something. The other thing that is really useful for is when you've done some work and you're all saying, oh yeah, it's to put your body back in a better place rather than keep stressing it out, because when you're like this, you are stressing parts of your body, as in you're overworking it, putting it in a position that it's not supposed to be. Yeah, your spine is not supposed to be in a C shape, it's supposed to be in an S shape. And when we sit with a back, even with supports, and especially this elevating your feet up so that your knee joint is above your hip, is really encouraging your tailbone to be tucked right under, and then you've got a complete C shape in your back. Statistically, I believe a lower back problem is quite high compared to upper back problems. I had a little bit of that, and several of my students have had their, bones fused together to stop the pain and all of that, because in Western medicine, that's the only thing that they can help you do, is to lock them, stop them from moving. Now, the other thing about breathing is to learn to use the breath itself to do what it needs to do. The in-breath is to try and fill you up with fresh air. But you cannot fill your lungs with fresh air until you've emptied it. So in fact, for a lot of people who don't do this martial art Qigong breathing, is to learn to breathe out well first.
Okay.
Yeah. So take a breath for me. And then empty it as best you can. And as long as you can, and as long as you can, as long as you can. Now take a deep breath in. It's much bigger, isn't it? It's much longer because you've emptied it, so you can fill it. If you leave some of it in, it cannot be filled with fresh.
And when you think about it, okay, which again we don't normally think about things like
this.
It's common sense,
isn't it?
But sometimes you need somebody to
tell you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and one of the, I'm told that if you put horrible things in people's minds, it really gels with them, right? So I always think that if you don't empty the toilet, it won't be clean. Yeah, flush the toilet, get rid of the rubbish.
Okay, this is something I'll definitely remember. So yes,
yeah,
you're correct.
You can't have fresh air in if you leave any there. Yeah, if you have a bucket of water and you leave a little bit of dirt at the bottom, you fill up where it still looks a bit dirty. You have to empty it, including cleaning all the rubbish off, before you can put fresh water in.
So let's do one standing up. I'm just going to move this to the side so that you have a little bit more room. And let me just make sure I can capture you here. Wonderful.
Okay, so when you've stood up from the chair, your feet are still as wide as your shoulders, as wide as your hip, and you're using your feet as well as you can. Imagine though, even though you're standing and you're supposed to be doing exercise, imagine that you're sitting. So you bend your knees, hips a little bit, and your ankles a little bit soft and not, So don't put too much effort into it, as in, I'm having a little sit. Think sit. But in fact, when you do that, you're working your leg muscles a lot harder than if you locked your knees. You do rest your muscles when you lock your joints. Yeah, but if you use your joints, the muscles on either side of those joints has to work to hold them there. Okay, so do think about sitting.
And I know in class you tend to tell us always to sink a bit lower.
Yeah.
Is that, well, it obviously works your muscles more.
Harder. Yeah.
Okay.
And all sorts of other things. If you fall and you're lower, you fall, you're closer to the floor. Your centre of gravity, you're less likely to fall if your centre of gravity is closer to the ground. Okay. So if you have a risk of falling, bend your knees and be softer. The other simple thing to think about in terms of falling and forces, a handkerchief, if you are soft, you just collapse. Whereas if you are rigid and you fall, you will bang and hit yourself and hurt yourself. And that's also, again, why some people come to the class. They said, I need to improve. I have got no balance. I need to balance. Well, the only thing I can teach you is how to get the balance. I can't do some voodoo magic and says, now you have balance. I will teach you how you get balance. And the first thing you do balance is to be able to know what's going on underneath your feet, the soles of your feet, is to be able to feel your feet. And that's why it's good in class to come with flat shoes or thick socks or whatever, okay? And learn to use your feet the way they were made to be used. They were not made to be constricted, so if you can, whenever you can, is let your feet spread out. So the bigger contact with the floor, the more information you have, and also you're more likely to stay upright, aren't you? Okay. Yeah, you spread yourself out, okay? So feel your feet. So it's just when you're not feeling too good, just stand up, use your feet but still think sitting, and then just do a few breaths.
Now, can you do something that combines your posture with your breath with some movement?
Ooh, 8 pieces of brocade. I love this one. Breathing in and out. Everything moves together. My legs, my arms going up together, and everything comes down together. You breathe in and you breathe out. And remember, your out breath is a little bit longer than your in breath. And I teach a rhythm of 4 in and 6 out to start with. That's an easy one to get people using. Especially on the out breath, a lot of people end up doing it too fast. Use your arm as if it's the clock face. So 4 in, so it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you can see, my hands is on the clock face. Yeah, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock is halfway, 5, 6. Yeah, so yeah, that's a really useful one to help you to get that rhythm of a slightly shorter in breath and an out breath.
Okay.
To really learn.
And what would you do that primarily for? Just to calm yourself, ground yourself?
Yeah. As an engineer, I did a lot of concentrating on bits of paper or on the screen, and after a little while, I haven't breathed. Sometimes when you concentrate so hard on something external, not within you, you do hold your breath. And I remember sometimes I go, and then all we do in those days was pant. Yeah. And then we wonder why we feel a bit funny. Because when you take too much breath in, but you haven't emptied your breath, what's the science behind that? Your body does not sense how much oxygen you get in. What your body does then is how much carbon dioxide you have in. So the less you breathe out, the more you keep bringing in more fresh air. Into proportion of oxygen to carbon dioxide, you're having more and more carbon dioxide. And that's what your body actually feels. So if you're feeling a bit, the first thing you must do is.
So for example, if somebody has a desk job, if they took a break every hour or every...
They say every half an hour, didn't they? Even 20 minutes, they say.
Just taking a few minutes out and maybe even sitting properly and breathing properly and even doing something like how you were doing the hand.
It doesn't even have to be a few... A few of these would only take you 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
1 or 2 minutes. That's the other thing I noticed, that what all of this training has done for me. It has made my mind so much more healthy. Therefore, I can use it to tackle all the problems I have and all the thinking I have.
And you're more productive, you're more
because
efficient.
You're more productive.
Yes.
People say to me quite often, say, I haven't got time to come to your class.
Yeah.
But they do have time to carry on working badly and poorly with what they've got. Yeah. So it is not, can you find the time to do better? And the only way I can do that is going to do this.
Yeah.
And then I will.
It's like having a mobile phone or a cell phone and not charging it and having it on 1%, 2%. You're not going to get a lot out of it until you stop, charge it, and then you're going to get more
absolutely, yeah.
Or driving a car that has no petrol.
It's
right?
We think that working long hours mean we're more productive, but the longer hours mean you're tired, and it's probably rubbish that you're doing if you're doing any work at all. I remember doing that at work. Take the time to not put up with what you think you're not doing very well, and do something about it.
Do you have a move that can help invigorate someone? Let's say you're working on a project and you're feeling sleepy or something. Is there something that you can do? It is
just that simple. Do use that thought of something nice.
Okay.
For me, it isn't food. It's the visual memory of walking in the woods. For some people, it's the seaside. So when you smell, think of that seaside smell, which is that slightly salty smell. and also that wind in your face. Feel
So
the
using
wind.
your senses.
Feeling is using your memory. And do you remember that for people who have Alzheimer's, they say is to activate their memory. That will get their brain going. Because, Alzheimer's is a lot about your brain dying and not being used. But funny enough, when you ask people to remember something, their brain sort of wakes up again.
Ah. Is this part of Qigong or Tai Chi, or is this just alongside, like a
This is the way
visualization?
we think.
Right.
Yeah. And visualization is one of those tools as part of thinking.
So it does combine quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, my research into what does visualization do for you, including why we think in the martial art Tai Chi, we said, imagine somebody's going to punch you or they're going to kick you, and this is what you're going to do about it. Visualization can improve your performance by as much as 17%. Again, modern science have done experiments to show that. So I'm giving you factual thing of how your brain works. So if you really imagine that you are at the seaside and you are feeling the wind and the sea salt and everything, that just makes you feel better.
Okay, that's a very helpful tip. And
Yeah.
something that everyone can do.
Yeah, everyone
anytime.
can do. So the other thing about if you are one of those people that can't get going, yeah, you want to stay in bed, you want to stay sitting, slouch, one of the simple things you can do is this. And we do this a lot, this is sliding your fingers along each other.
Okay.
Now, what's the science behind that? You've got millions of nerve endings on your hand, including on the side of your fingers. But how often do we use those nerve endings?
Oh, wow.
We never do. We only ever use that. But we have nerve endings on the side.
So
they're
just
static.
The act of sliding your fingers
Yeah.
together, and it's not necessarily about lifting it over your head.
You don't have
or
to.
anything
Just
else.
slide your finger and feel that. And I don't know about you, I can feel my brain going, "Hoo, hoo,"
Okay.
because you are
Very
sending
interesting.
signal.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. It's part of my, I'm trying to broaden my Tai Chi, Qigong training to incorporate a bit more Chinese medicines as part of my learning. And that's one of those things, is using these things, yeah. And also each of your fingers is associated with one of your major organs. So using all these Tai Chi moves that uses your fingers in certain ways is stimulating and using those organs. So if you're one of those people that you have a problem getting your mind going because you're physically, from getting up or being static, it's just to do this.
Okay.
But slowly and carefully, and really
easy
think
enough,
about.
And nobody
It's,
has to. Well, nobody's going to think anything because it's not.
And some people do hold their hand like this as well, don't they? Yeah. But yeah, if you think, oh, I could get, just feel it.
Thank you.
It's very simple. The first form that I teach in our school is the traditional Yang short form with 37 moves. Moves of 37 in sequence. It's actually more than that, but the official 37. Anyway, there is one part of it called cloud hands, and it looks vaguely like this. It looks like you're walking sideways and you're waving your hands like cloud, and you've heard people say this. I'm waving my hands like cloud and I'm going sideways. Why is that martial art? But in fact, it is martial art because I can do it standing still. This is a block. If a punch comes, I'm blocking it. My hand is here in case they pick their knee up or their leg up to kick you. I'm blocking a punch, but I'm also looking after my body. Okay, so it's a block. They change their hand, so I block the other way. They change their hand, so somebody's punching you like this. So you're blocking, blocking, blocking. So that's cloud hands. And it looks like I'm drawing clouds. Yeah. And it looks very soft. Yeah. And the reason for doing it softly, I am not doing a block. I am not going across. If you can look, if you can see, I'm actually going in a circular motion. So I'm deflecting. If a punch comes, I meet the punch and I'm letting it slide. It's going that way. I am not blocking. I'm not doing this. I'm keeping my arm still. Your arm looks like they're moving because you use your body. My arm is not moving. They change over, but they don't move at all to do the block. Because it's not a block, it's actually a deflect. That's all I'm doing. So I'm teaching you to look after yourself here. You might get hurt, but you should be hurt less. And you might be doing a lot to help yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay?
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of this inspiring conversation with Anita. I hope you enjoyed the talk and gained some valuable insight into the practices of Qigong and Tai Chi. These arts offer so many powerful benefits, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. Whether you're looking to feel more balanced, grounded, or simply breathe better in a busy world, these practices are a game changer. Anita's demos and tips today hopefully showed you how accessible and practical this path can be, even if you're just starting out. If you'd like to learn more about Anita or explore her classes, whether in person or online via Zoom, check out the links in the description below. Feel free to reach out to her directly with any questions. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring content. Until next time, take care, keep learning, and always stay inspired.